Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's update on Hurricane Fiona. So, as of 8 a.m. Atlantic Standard Time, Friday, September the 23rd, 2022, Hurricane Fiona remains a powerful Category 3 hurricane with maximum sustained winds of 125 miles per hour, a minimum central pressure of 936 millibars, and is now racing north-northeast at 25 miles per hour. This video is going to be focusing on the impacts of Fiona, but I'm going to mention that Tropical Depression 9 has now developed in the South Central Caribbean, and this is expected to bring major impacts to the Northwestern Caribbean and Southeastern United States, particularly Florida, Cuba, the Cayman Islands, and Jamaica. So looking at the National Hurricane Center's cone for Hurricane Fiona, Bermuda is still experiencing strong tropical storm force winds and is still under a tropical storm warning as of 8 a.m. Friday morning. And we have hurricane warnings for much of central and eastern Nova Scotia, portions of eastern New Brunswick, and western Newfoundland now in the red, and widespread tropical storm warnings for western Nova Scotia, south and east New Brunswick, southeastern mainland Canada, and eastern Newfoundland in the dark blue. And Fiona is expected to approach Nova Scotia 2 a.m. Saturday morning as still a major hurricane. So in Nova Scotia, make sure you're making your hurricane preparations right now, as this is going to likely be the worst storm that central eastern Nova Scotia and western New Brunswick you guys have dealt with in decades. So, looking at the satellite imagery of Hurricane Fiona is still looking very, very impressive on satellite imagery. It still has the eye, and it still has the nice hurricane structure to it, and you see the trough that's digging in from the northeast, and this is going to be what picks up Fiona and moves it into eastern Nova Scotia over the next 24 to 36 hours. And we have a lot of rain preceding Fiona as the trough draws in the moisture ahead of it. So you're likely already experiencing some showers across Nova Scotia, maybe New Brunswick, and eastern and western Newfoundland. Looking at the spaghetti model plots for Hurricane Fiona is expected to approach southeastern Nova Scotia in the next 24 hours, and in the next 36 hours is expected to approach western Newfoundland, and in 48 hours, far eastern mainland Canada. Looking at the tropical storm wind probabilities for Fiona, tropical storm force winds are a guarantee for central and eastern Nova Scotia, as y'all now have a 90 to 100% chance of experiencing tropical storm force winds from Hurricane Fiona. And in central Nova Scotia, you have about a 50 to 90% chance. So very likely you'll be experiencing tropical storm force winds in central, and even areas of western Nova Scotia now have a 30 to 50% chance of seeing tropical storm force winds. Even now, eastern New Brunswick now has about a 20 to 50% chance. The further east you go, the higher the chance for tropical storm force winds. So eastern New Brunswick, you're likely going to be feeling impacts from Fiona as well now. And central and western Newfoundland, you have about a 40% chance of seeing tropical storm force winds in central Newfoundland. And in western Newfoundland, you have about a 60 to 90% chance, with the gradient rapidly increasing as you move further west. And southeast mainland Canada, you guys now have a 50 to 70% chance of seeing tropical storm force winds. So, looking at the hurricane force winds now, Eastern Nova Scotia is going to likely be seeing hurricane force winds from this, with now a 50 to 90% chance of hurricane force winds occurring across eastern Nova Scotia. And I expect the hurricane force wind probabilities to increase for western Newfoundland as well, as Fiona will still likely be producing 100-mile-per-hour winds all the way up west of Newfoundland. Looking at the rainfall totals first from, I believe, the European model, or this is a GFS model. The GFS model is putting about 2 to 4 inches of rain in western Nova Scotia and about 4 to 6 inches across central and eastern Nova Scotia. A little less in New Brunswick, as Fiona is going to be racing north at this point. Only about 1 to 3 inches, and then about 1 to 4 inches across eastern mainland Canada. And then looking at the European model, the European model is in great agreement with the rainfall as well, with about 1 to 3 inches in western Nova Scotia and about 3 to 6 inches in central and eastern Nova Scotia, and in central and western New Brunswick, about 2 to 4 inches, and in eastern mainland Canada, about 1 to 3 inches in the European model. So this is going to be a very high impact storm for Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Newfoundland, especially Nova Scotia. This is going to probably be the worst storm you've dealt with in several decades. So make sure you are battening down the hatches if you live in central eastern Nova Scotia and western New Brunswick. Stay safe and have a wonderful afternoon, my friends.